Sorry. Okay. Hi, I'm Georgia.
And I'm Rene, and welcome to Zen and Tech, our lifestyle podcast where we talk all about centering your inner geek and getting more out of your connected existence. How are you doing, Georgia?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Are you laughing at my connected existence?
No, I think that that's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Not always that we are, though.
All right, so we were supposed to do a show about procrastination months and months ago, but we never got around to it.
We've been putting it off.
So now we're supposed to do a show about dealing with taxes and the stresses of budgets and stuff, and we're putting that off so we can do a show about procrastination.
Right, because one has a greater anxiety than the other, so we figure we might as well do the one that has the lesser feeling of stress about it.
I just thought taxes were the only thing horrible enough to make us not put up procrastination anymore.
Right, and I do really suffer from procrastination, so it's a good show for me.
So let's start off with defining the term. When people say procrastination, what is that referring to?
It refers to us putting off something that we want to and or have to do and doing anything else but that.
Now, is there a caveat there? Because there are some things, like if something is number 9 on my list, I may not be putting it off. It just might be the 9th most important thing for me to do. How do you know when it's procrastination and how do you know when it's just being busy? Is it like if you're sitting on the sofa eating Cheetos instead of doing it as procrastination?
There's a whole bunch of reasons why you wouldn't be, and then you know it's procrastination. Because if you feel anxiety towards it and you are going to do something of lesser importance other than that, it's procrastination.
So when I'm cleaning the house rather than doing something, you know it's so horrible that I'm actually willing to clean the house instead of do it.
Exactly. When you're going to clean your bedroom or clean the toilet instead of something else, it's probably procrastination.
So let me ask you this. Why is that so bad? I mean, there's this old saying, don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today. But what about the whole theory of don't put off till tomorrow what you can never ever do?
Better late than never, but usually we're just always late. And
Yeah,
sometimes it's just never.
So why is that bad? Why do I have to do stuff I don't like?
Because in the end, you will just put off some things, and the longer you put it off, the greater your anxiety develops because of that. And then suddenly you just won't do it, or it will be too late to do, or it'll be too late to do to the standard of which you could have done it. And that's just a killer either way.
Now, it sounds like procrastination has to do with fairly important things. It's not like I'm not procrastinating getting up and getting a cold beverage out of the refrigerator. I'm just being lazy. I'm procrastinating doing my taxes or, going to visit the aunt that I dislike, right? It's things that seem more onerous to me somehow.
Though there could be issues like that. If you've been putting off seeing your aunt and you really have to see her, then it would be considered procrastination. You may be lazy as well, though usually it's led to an anxiety. So usually it's not laziness that's leading to procrastination. Laziness would be more of a lack of motivation, or if you're dealing with depression, and then we call it laziness. But often procrastination is something completely different. It's an actual anxiety.
All right, so why would someone procrastinate? I mean, in a purely rational intellectual world, there are certain things that we just know we have to get done. But I understand that overwhelming feeling of I don't want to go anywhere near it.
Right, well, let's go through this list, and you can just tick off how many of them suit your personality type, and I'll go through some of them. Now, some of them...
Do we have to go through the list?
We have to go through the list. We have to, like lift our hand for when we do it. And for some of them, we have actual shows on them, and they're huge topics in and of themselves. But let's kind of go through them. So, do you ever have a fear of failure? So, that was mine, so yes. And I would procrastinate because of that. How about you, Rene?
I don't know. No, I'm so good at failure. I don't necessarily fear it. It's like an old friend.
Perfectionism is another one, and yeah, I lean towards being perfectionist. I want it to be perfect. I want it to look good before I do something, and that can also be encompassing for myself.
I don't know if I can really say that either. I mean, there's certain I have this good enough is good enough, and perfection is seldom worth the pain in the ass it takes to achieve it.
Which is funny because you do produce a lot, so maybe that is why you are so productive.
Because, yeah, I mean, people will criticize me. They're like, can't you hire a copy editor? I mean, yes, but, there's a certain amount where that breaks down over volume.
Right, you have like 12,000 podcasts that you do. You write like millions and millions of words.
But they're all shoddy. That's how I get away with it.
But that's exactly what you need. You need to just do it. You can make it better later, but if you don't do it, and people that are perfectionists, they will get stuck in having to do something to be really, really amazing, which is impossible. Perfection is impossible, so you get stuck in that loop, and you just won't do it at all in fear of that. It's better to do something and it's not that great, and you fix it and make it better. Plus, you're learning from that experience. 80% of success is 80% of just being there. Just doing it is really
Knowing is half the battle.
Right, and you learn from that.
Now, I do have a huge good enough drive. Like, if I see something that looks shoddy, like I wouldn't want to put my name to it or I'm embarrassed by it, I won't let that out, but I don't feel an overwhelming need to perfect it either.
Right, perfection, it's impossible, so why do that? You cannot do it, then you would just never do it. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's never going to be perfect, so I'm just never going to do it. And then you don't.
All right,
And
so
then
what
you
else
see
you
someone
got for
else
me?
coming out with like an idea that's horrible, and it's your idea, and you're like, I could have done better than that. But you didn't. In the end, it's what you can make. It's not just what you can say, talk about it, right?
Yep.
What does it say, Rene? Steve Jobs says, good people.
Great artists ship.
That's it.
Ship.
Ship. Fear of success. So the opposite of fear of failure, but some people are scared to what will happen if they're successful. Who will they become? How will they handle it? I don't have any of that. That's not. I don't have any.
I would like to succeed. Thank you. I'm not sorry. If you do have a fear of success, I'm not making fun of you. It's just not an issue that I've personally.
No, I wish. I'm the it's just something that if you're scared of success, you can get over it so much easier than dealing with a fear of failure.
Now, when you say success, is it a fear of being good at something? Is it a fear of the attention that you'll get, like becoming well known? What does an actual fear of success mean? Because fear of failure is so easy to understand, but fear of success for me is everybody's.
Fear of failure is easy for me to understand because it's mine. I don't have a fear of success because I'm so stuck not doing it.
Fear of failure is like it's embarrassing. You might embarrass yourself, or people will think that you're stupid. Like that seems so real. But fear of success, it'll make you famous. It'll make you really well. I can understand some anxiety, but
it would be a fear of change. Something's going to be different. You don't know if you're going to have more responsibilities, more people that you have to deal with, more expectations. Because of that, it might become overwhelming. People may look at you differently. You may not feel that you deserve that or that you fit into those shoes. And so that would be a fear of success.
Because there was a lot of talk when the guy who made Flappy Bird just pulled it off the App Store,
right?
And people just didn't understand. And that app was making, it was making. People say it was making a lot of money. We'll never know for certain because he never released numbers. But it was almost certainly hugely financially successful for him, and he still walked away from it. And it seemed like the success was creating a huge amount of anxiety for him.
Exactly, and I didn't understand it. Again, it's not my fear. We usually can understand people that have similar personality types to our own more easily than people that have different. So for me, I said, well, it must be a marketing ploy. Like, this is a great idea for people to download it as quickly as possible so that they can have it. And it wasn't. He really did not like the success, the notoriety, the people. Also, success comes with a lot of people becoming jealous, a lot of people speaking poorly to you, a lot of negatives, right? You become famous, people suddenly treat you like a non-entity, and I think that was also very bothersome. It was, for some people, they were very angry at this game. It was still a good thing, but people were viscerally angry and giving a lot of angry emails and texts, so that also comes with success.
All right, maybe let's power through the list because I have a lot to say about this, but I don't want to forget about the list. So maybe, what's the next one?
Self-sabotage. So that one is just maybe you feel you don't deserve it, maybe you don't think that you've done other things, and maybe again this is just your pattern. You're used to where you are and something unknown might be scary for you.
Okay.
Need a gun. You work better under a time.
Sorry, what was that?
Need a gun. If someone has a gun to your head, you would do it and do it really well. But you need a deadline. Sometimes we have too much freedom, and you will get lost within that. I do also. No wonder procrastination has an issue. That's also, I work better with hardcore deadlines, and they just have to be. That's better for me than open-ended things.
I don't need a gun, but I like the adrenaline rush that comes with the stress that comes with the gun.
Right. Right, exactly. See, again, but you produce a ton of things, so I can see how that would work for you.
Well, I don't know. I'll save that for after.
Only work well if you have to please others. So you work well for someone else, but not for yourself. Or the inverse could be that you work well for yourself, but you become oppositional when someone else tells you to do something. Then there's the fear of the unknown. You might not know it, not feel comfortable, never have done this before. There is also the fear of doing something new, which would also, that would go to all of them. And then the fear of judgment. If you become successful or you do something, what are people going to say about that end result?
So my primary one, if we can start breaking these down, I didn't see on that list, and maybe it's just because I don't understand how to segment it or classify it properly. But I procrastinate a lot to involve social interaction with people that I don't know very well, or that there has some other social consequence to that interaction. Like if I have to call somebody or arrange something or do something, I dislike that kind of interaction, so I procrastinate anything that would cause it.
Right, which would be probably a really important one, is just avoidance. You're avoiding something that you feel anxiety towards and replacing it with something that is either less anxiety provoking or something that you get a pro-social benefit. You feel good, so you can delay that feeling of anxiety, which is all of them do that. You're usually doing an avoidance technique more than a reason for why you have it. Like the reasons that we have is why you procrastinate. You're saying that this is your technique for procrastinating, which would be a little bit different.
Okay. All right, so can we go through...
And yes, that's what we all kind of do. Can
we go through the list again and sort of break them down a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
So what was the first one again?
Okay, so the first one is fear of failure.
Okay, that to me is, and again, that to me is crystal clear, because I don't know if anyone likes to fail, and the idea of, you being the one who falls down in front of everybody, or whose presentation sucks, or, it's the idea of risk taking, and every risk, it comes with the consequence of failure. So that makes a lot of sense to me. That one is really easily understandable.
Perfectionism.
Perfectionism. So I don't understand the procrastination behind that, to be honest with you. I can understand why perfectionism makes tasks take an incredibly long amount of time because you're not satisfied with your work. But is the idea that you're avoiding it because you know it's going to take a long time, or because or does it go back to fear of failure?
No, it's kind of interesting. You want it to be really, really good, and that feeling is overwhelming to it. So you're trying to set up every little tiny, minute detail to make sure that it is all going to work out perfectly, or perhaps you have an idea that is not yet perfected. You don't want to even attempt to do it until that perfection rate is guaranteed first. And so you're stuck in an impossible conundrum, and it kind of keeps you stuck in one position.
So it's not the same, and I think where I'm falling down on this a little bit is I'm expecting them all to be the same. Like, you just don't want to do it, so you don't try. But this is more like if you make it such a complicated task that you can almost just never get around to finishing it.
Right, they're not all exactly the same. The reasons that we procrastinate are not the same. That's why it's really important to figure out why you procrastinate, because it won't be the same as what someone else does. And we often think that why one person's avoiding any task, and avoidance techniques are, like, we can talk about the millions of different avoidance techniques that you have, but why you avoid one task might not be the same as why someone else avoids a task. And the way to get rid of it is to know why you avoid. So I do fear of failure and perfectionism, which is a death trap, because I will put off doing something because I'm nervous about doing it, just the regular reason, but then I want it to be perfect, and that makes me stuck in an impossibility. Procrastinating perfectionists. It's just a death trap.
Okay, that's understandable. What about the next one?
Fear of success. So we talked a lot about that one before.
There's the Flappy Birds one. There's Dave Chappelle quit his show at the height of it because he said everyone just wanted a piece of him. And there's also the people who win lotteries and they just feel like everyone comes out of the woodwork and wants to take it away from them. But those are all people who discovered it late in the cycle. Is this fear people who have either had it before or just really good at anticipating negative consequences?
No, it can happen to anyone. You can talk about people that were famous actors, or, what is the chess player that also just stopped playing and never went back?
Oh,
people change.
Fischer. Bobby
Yes,
Fischer.
Bobby Fischer. And people change. The way that they treat you change. They're no longer real. They're no longer authentic. And it's again, success, everyone says, how wonderful that would be. But it also comes with a whole bunch of negative consequences that we don't understand unless we're successful. If no one really cared about who you were, only what you were, it is a huge downer, and you learn not to trust people, which is also really sad.
What was the next one?
Self-sabotage.
All right, so this I don't understand either. So what is the procrastination involved in this?
Well, this is why they might procrastinate. The procrastination is an active source of, maybe they could do any of the procrastination techniques.
Why might someone procrastinate? Yeah. So why would they do it to sell? So they know that if they do this, it
Why
would be
would they
good.
self-sabotage is what you're kind of
Yes,
asking me, right? What
yes.
kind of personality trait, how would this happen to someone? Where is it coming from? Fair. So self-sabotage could have that you maybe have a very poor self-esteem, you don't feel like you deserve it, you might have, different types of addictions that are getting you caught, you might have your priorities set wrong, and sometimes people like to live on the edge, so they're always testing out the waters, and they might just be prone to self-sabotage.
So is this some form of inferiority complex? Is it some form of imposter syndrome?
No, it might be neither of those things. Some of the most cool, less safe, actually, a lot of people that are really, really cool, that live on the edge, that are risk takers, might also self-sabotage. It's just taking things a little bit too far, not thinking further enough ahead. It could also be that they're high levels of caretakers and they put everyone else's needs above their own. So because of that, they're on the lowest of the totem pole, so they're self-sabotaging because they're not feeding themselves, they're not taking care of themselves, they're not eating, they're not sleeping, and then they're saying, I want to do really well at my job. That's impossible.
So, and I apologize for asking this, but this is one of the harder ones for me to understand. Um, how would you recognize if you're self-sabotaging, and what are you actually procrastinating? Like, what are you not doing that makes it a form of procrastination?
It could be a whole bunch of things, and I don't want to really go into how, like, what are your deflection mechanisms, because it's a whole different topic and they're all exactly the same. You might be going to like being late for an interview, not being prepared for the
Okay.
interview, not looking good, not grooming yourself. It could be saying something deliberately rude. It could be testing people's limits. These are things that you could do that you might be like not preparing yourself well enough, not making sure that you're going to like think before you speak, and you're just staying there and you end up flabbergasted. So self-sabotage can go through a whole bunch of different situations, and again, procrastination is also one of them.
And it's a little bit different because you don't really care whether you succeed or fail. You're actually destroying your opportunity to do either.
You kind of want to. That's the hard part, is that also you want to. You might not know that you are self-sabotaging, but you are doing everything that is a self-sabotage. So it's really hard when most people don't know that they're doing it, and most people will say that they're not when we go through it, and you're like, but it makes no sense, then why would you do this?
All right, so what's next?
The next one is needing to have a gun, needing to have a hardcore, deadline, needing to have someone that says, if, I remember my thesis supervisor saying, listen, if you don't get your thesis in by this date, you will not graduate. That was good for me. That was enough of a gun, and I had it done, though. It was just painful, the entire process, but it worked that way.
So what goes into that? Because is it just that overcomes your is it enough of a threat that it overcomes your procrastination?
You also feel that rush of adrenaline, and a
Yeah.
lot of people like to work when they have that rush of adrenaline, something that they need to. If not, they just feel like it's not like, I have plenty of time, I've put plenty of time, and then they just kind of nonchalantly, it's not a huge anxiety, it's just they kind of put it off because they have so much time they don't have to worry about it.
You have tons of time until you don't.
Exactly, and you want that rush, and then that rush comes, and then you're going at it really, really quickly.
All right, and was there one or two more?
There's 4 more.
Okay, do it.
Only work well to please others.
That's easy to understand. That one I can get because like you get sort of a positive reinforcement. People are happy. That makes a lot of sense to me.
You don't do things for yourself.
Yeah.
That's when you need someone else, a mother, an authority figure, someone that you care about. But the problem is that when you lose that figure, you might lose your motivation as well. And so that puts it together at the same time. And then the inverse can happen, where you can only work for yourself. If someone else asks you to do something, right away you become oppositional and say, I'm not doing it then.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there was a spite-based one, like almost like that classic movie line, why not? Because you wish it.
Yes, exactly. And oppositionalness is also really, really common. So if ever you can tell if you're oppositional is if someone asks you to do something and right away you get this like why? No, I'm not going to. And then you think, but would it be valid for them to ask me to do this? And like, oh yes, it would. Okay, it also might have to do with ego and hierarchy. And those two would come into play with this.
So I think what was confusing me at first is that they're so different. Like some of the ones you mentioned initially was you were procrastinating to avoid doing something you didn't like, and some of these are now you're avoiding in order to create an environment that you like better.
Right.
All right. All right. So what's the,
Right.
was there a last couple you said?
Fear of the unknown.
Yep.
That one's really, really common. And what that one deals with is that if you don't feel comfortable doing something that's new, you're outside of your comfort zone. So you said, I'm just going to try to figure it out a little bit more. I'm going to research a little bit more. You want to feel comfort before you jump into the water, which makes a lot of sense. But sometimes it can become too much. You do so much research that you never do any work. It's the people that are always looking into all the reasons, all the whys and wheres and whats, and they're just never actually doing it themselves.
Paralysis through analysis.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. I might steal that one. That's good.
You can have that one.
Thank you.
All right. Was there a last one?
And then it's fear of judgment.
Okay.
That it might not be good enough, that people might say something about it, that they might be negative, they might be critical. If you have very invalidating or harsh parents, you might have this one.
So it seems like there's
never be good
also
enough.
overlap between a lot of them.
Yes, there's a lot of overlap, though some of them are exactly like opposite of the others.
But if you're afraid of judgment, you might also be afraid of failure because that's what necessitates the judgment, or at least it sounds like that to me. Am I getting it all
You
wrong?
see, I don't really have much of the a little bit, I guess. I don't like when people say that was really, really horrible, but it's more myself than anyone
Okay.
else how they feel about it. So they're not
So
exactly
it's internal
the same,
versus
though
external.
sometimes, yeah, for fear of judgment versus failure, yes.
Oh, okay. All right, so that's really, and I apologize again for so many questions, but that's really a complicated bag of pain there.
It's a whole bunch of different things, and everyone has a different set of theirs if they procrastinate. Now, some people don't procrastinate. It's a fabulous technique.
Are they fear of procrastination?
Exactly. They might have an anxiety, and their anxiety is not having it done, so they always make sure to get it done because they're too anxious if they don't.
Okay.
You want to be in the comfort zone in between. If you have to do everything immediately, and that will take precedence over anything, it also might be an issue, but not today's issue that we're going to discuss.
All right, so if you can perfectly balance your obsessive compulsions against your procrastinations, then you can move forward in this universe.
Right. And so what you would do is you would track those and say, give yourself like a 1 to 10 on each of them, how strong they are for you, which ones are a 0 and which ones are a 10. That will change the methods that you will use in order to get over procrastinating. Because I like to think of procrastination like a game that you actually have to play because you're always playing it when you're procrastinating. And the way to win at any game, Rene?
Not to play.
Not to play, right.
I learned that in war games. Take that, Whopper.
The way to win by playing a game, because you are already procrastinating and you want to stop, is by learning who you are and why you do something, and then you can always deal with. Sorry, my hair keeps on going right in my face.
Because you're procrastinating, talking about procrastination.
Killing me. No, it's itching me. It's like sticking right at my. Okay, sorry. So the way that you win at any game is to learn all of the rules, learn what works for you and what doesn't. And then you can change that. So if you know why you procrastinate, then you can end up dealing with how to get over it.
You can hack the system.
Exactly.
See, a thought, it's a total tangent, but a thought occurred to me today. Is it considered cheating at Kobayashi Maru if you play as the Klingon?
No, then you just always win. That's what the Klingons play, and they're just happy
Awesome.
every single time.
All right, so now that we have this, all right, so let me just go back to that for a second. You're going to take that list, and we'll put the list in the show notes so it'll be easy for people to have it in front of them. And you're going to take each one of those, and you're going to figure out if they apply to you, and if they do, how severely that you feel that applies to you. Is that right? Like between
Right.
a 1 and a 10?
Exactly, 1 and a 10. Now, if any of them are, say, 6 to a 10, it's a strong cursor to cause you to procrastinate, and you want to look into that. And each one, I think we've done a show on almost every single one of these, and you can take a look at that. I don't think that we have one on the social anxiety or the fear of judgment, but we will at some point, and you can take a look
We did
at
do
that
one
and
on how to
deal with
handle
it.
criticism. I don't know if that
Which
counts.
is pretty close, so you would want to take a look at that show to help you deal with it. But also then you understand it's not this great unknown, because we lie to ourselves. We will say that, well, I actually have to first clean up my desk before I do all my paperwork, which is nice to have a clean desk, but if your paper is due the next day, it's not the time to do it. Clean your desk when you don't have a paper due the next day. But if you have to call your mother-in-law and instead you're going to fix the sink, now you're just avoiding it. And we will say, but it's really important that I clean the sink because she might ask me about it, or my wife might ask me about it, and then, I haven't done it. So we lie to ourselves very adeptly.
We're amazing rationalization engines.
Exactly.
All right, so now you have, and don't procrastinate doing the list. That's, not for any reason. So do that list.
Do the
Then you,
list.
so
Do the
then you
list while you watch the show, so you don't have to worry about it. Just think it in your head.
so now I have this list in front of me, my own personal waveform of suffering. What do I do with it?
Now you're going to find ways in order to inverse the game. So say that you really need a gun. You need that adrenaline rush. Well, there's probably, you could have, a friend make a little game of it, make little achievements, make it fun to get over whatever you have to do. Or perhaps you just always put something off. You just always put it off because you're scared of the unknown. Well, maybe you'll just cut it into little tiny pieces. So we have a list of all different types of things that will work depending on your types, and then you would just choose to test those out. And I would say try out all the techniques that I'm giving you and see which ones work for you and which ones don't. I think that there's something kind of funny. I bought the Procrastinator's Handbook. I'll show it here.
I can't believe you actually managed to get to the store and get it.
I bought the book. It came 2 weeks late, and I've only read it today when I had to do the show on it. But I just thought it was, and it's small. It's hilarious. Anyways.
All right, so should we go through your hacks?
Let's go through some hacks of how to help yourself.
Okay.
So let's go through the basic one. Technology can be your friend or your enemy, but while you are doing something that you must do, put away some time to do it. I would set yourself an alarm on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer to remind you, because you will forget. You won't really forget, but you're kind of forgetting. And then turn off all tech during that period of time.
Does that include like televisions, radios?
It's okay if you listen to music on the radio or if you have a playlist on your phone or iPad, but you don't want to touch it after that. Okay. You don't want to change the song. Oh, the song's over. I'm going to pick another song.
You don't want to use the skip button as your excuse not to do your work.
Right. Then you start. So it's fine to play music, but once you touch it during that period of time that you set, I like to make it a small, manageable piece of time, but you want to kind of just stay at it and keep doing it.
Okay, so if you have to interact with it in any way, turn it off.
Turn it off.
It's a distraction.
Truly, turn it off. Just if there's an emergency, someone will call you back later.
Okay. Let's move on next.
Okay, gamify. Make it fun. Give yourself treats, trinkets, something to do after you have done a certain period of work. Now, if it's taking you more time to get your treats and trinkets ready than it is to do the work, there's something wrong. So like an M&M, getting to watch
so if you finish the paper,
first.
you get a bag of M&Ms, or you get to watch the next episode of Supernatural, or you get to go out to the ice cream shop, or whatever.
Right, and you could surf on Facebook for 5 minutes. Now, the problem is that if you do that, though, your 5 minutes on Facebook might become 15. So you want to set a timer so that your time is over. If you're going back to work, you go back to work.
Okay. Good. So your rewards should always be small and non-destructive.
Yes.
Okay.
Try to make them non-destructive.
Okay.
If you are high for, say, perfectionism, if you overwhelm yourself, if you're one of the people that needs to, like, fear of the unknown and you have to know every single piece before you start, then in that case, you would want to cut it into small, manageable bites.
So that's one of those
really
theories.
Nice. I love that one.
That's one of those theories of getting things done where you take a task and then you break it down into every possible subtask of those things so that you see the progress of getting through them very quickly.
Right, and make a list of what you want to get done and put it on your wall. I like to make it with little tiny squares so I can check them off. I love checking off lists. It gives me a little happy feeling when I've knocked another list off. It's almost like achievements. I like, in like Plants vs. Zombies or any other game, they have a whole bunch of achievements that mean truly nothing and give you nothing. I don't care. I want to get them just to get them. You can do that for your life. You can do it even for your partner, which works out really. If they like that type of thing, can be fun. They might find it insulting if they don't. But it's nice to check off what you have done, and it also acknowledges your progress. So it works for both.
And an example of that is if you have to hang a picture for your wife or your husband and you've been procrastinating it, you can say, like, get the nails ready, get the hammer ready. And it sounds ridiculous, but every time you do one of those, they're so small that it's much easier to do them.
Right, and you can say, I'm going to
wall.
make one piece forward in every commercial that's on the show that I'm watching, though usually I just fast forward all the commercials, but you could just, yeah. Or during that period of time that would be a commercial, you can pause it and then go do a little bit of your work and then go back to it afterwards.
Set an alarm for every 10 minutes or something.
Yeah, and having it on the wall and then knocking it off is nice because everyone can acknowledge that you're working towards something.
All right, awesome. Next.
Just work for 5 minutes. Love this one. Body in motion wants to.
Stay in motion.
Exactly. So once you start at something, your initial anxiety usually is, what is the word for it? Usually you have the
It's front-loaded.
What is the word for it? Wait a second. Anyways, usually, thank you. Usually most of your anxiety is anticipatory. So once you actually start the task, you will feel better. And once you're in motion towards the task, it is easier to continue the task. So just say I'm going to work for 5 minutes. Odds are you will work for a little longer than 5 minutes.
Did you just say that anticipation of stress is worse than stress itself?
It's usually worse than the feeling of what you are worried about doing. It was scarier for me to stand on the edge of the diving board and say I'm going to jump off the diving board than it was the jumping. Though the jumping was also scary, but that standing there before you make that choice to jump is a horrible feeling.
Yeah, standing is involved, jumping is committed.
And it's one of those all or nothing things. So usually anticipatory anxiety is worse. And once you're doing it, you feel a little better. Now you're starting to give yourself some dopamine and some acknowledgement to keep going, and so you will continue at something.
And that's sometimes called a sprint, right? Because it seems like such a small thing that, you know, I can get through 5 minutes, or 5 minutes isn't that long, or it's just such a clear ending in sight that it makes it easier to do.
Exactly, and that's why when I tell people to exercise, just do it for 15 minutes. One is that's all your brain needs to get your dopamine and serotonin, which is dopamine is for your motivation and feel happy, and serotonin is that calm, cool, and collected. You only need 15 minutes a day of cardio, and that's manageable. Some people work out and they feel like they have to work out for an hour, for an hour and a half. It's too much, and then that's why you'll start for a little while and then you'll fall off in the end.
Okay, perfect. Next.
I love this one. So listen to music. Again, don't change every single song. Or if you're doing a task that you feel is silly or useless or you don't want to do or it's a waste of time, listen to an audiobook. I think that like Audacity, there's a whole bunch of really great audiobooks. You can put it onto your iPad, have it read to you, or even learn a language while you are working. So you can listen to any of the language learners that there are out there while you're doing work.
So is that because music or Audible or something like that, it distracts you, or it gives you something else to think about, so you're not thinking about what stresses you?
Oof, it would depend on what well, let's go back to the the reasons that you would feel anxiety.
So let me ask this better. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to listen to something?
So say that you have you get really, really bored really easily. That's also
like exercising.
Right, you might get really bored. It makes you feel like you're not wasting of your time. If the task is really, really dull and it's repetitive, so boredom is also one of the reasons that you might procrastinate. This says, oh, well, I'm doing something else so I don't feel as bad while I'm doing it. Maybe you have just an anxiety towards doing something that's new. And so this would be, you know what, I'm not thinking about it as much, so I don't feel as worried while I'm doing it. So say that you have to go up in an elevator and you're saying, I'm not going to go in the elevator, I'm just going to take the stairs, and you're like, okay, I've been procrastinating, I might as well just get there because I have to get there. The same thing for, say, a fear of judgment. You're just not thinking that much about it at the time, and it allows you to let go. So it would depend on the reasons that you procrastinate.
Okay. Awesome.
But I love that one. It works really well for me, and it makes me feel good at the same time.
It's the exercise trick people have been using for years.
Right. Get the supplies that you need to do what you have to do. If you are sick and tired of cutting a million pieces of paper because you have to do it by hand, buy a paper cutter. If you have to spend a little bit of funding so that you are properly supplied to do what you have to, great. Declutter. If your office room is a train wreck, watch our decluttering episode for sure. But if your office area is a train wreck and it stresses you out, then clean it. Now, don't clean it when you have your paper due the next day, but clean it once, say, after this paper is done, I'm going to clean this room. You probably will try to do it the opposite way, which would be procrastinating, but just make sure that it gets done.
Okay, awesome. Is that it?
No.
Oh, okay.
Say that you're going to do it, and you're going to do it horribly, but you're just going to do it. It's going to be bad.
Set expectations low.
Right. This is for those that are procrastinating, that fear doing something new, that are worried about the unknown. Just say, I'm going to get it done, and it's going to be wrong, and that's okay. But it's done. You can make it better later once it's finished. You can edit it. You can make it nice. You can, edit out all the times I've scratched my face during this episode.
No, those are staying in.
Think positive while you are working. Please don't be that negative, hateful person to yourself and look, this is so horrible. Everyone's going to think poorly of me. I've done something else wrong. If you are that bully inside of your head while you're working at something, you're not going to want to do it any more often.
So how do you do that without coming off as positive reaffirmation guy? Like, gosh darn it, I am a good person and people like me.
People like me. I love that positive affirmation guy. There is a full technique to it, and we should probably go through that separately.
Okay,
but there's a whole technique of how to speak to yourself. You want to believe it, but you want it to be uplifting. And so what I will often say as a quick pro quo, because it's probably a full show in itself, is think about what one of your friends would say or someone that cares about you. Or if you loved someone else and they were in your position, what would you say to them?
Okay, awesome.
Pick one of those and then do it. Here's a cool one. Exercise for 5 minutes before you start your work. Jumping jacks, you know, whatever it has to be, 5 minutes before you get started. And this one's pretty cool because it starts your brain up. And it also helps you learn a little faster and allows you to focus. You're burning off a slight amount of your anxiety, putting it into exercise, and then you will be more ready to do whatever work you have to do.
Can you substitute taking a shot of espresso?
No, that could make you more anxious.
Okay.
So don't do that.
All right.
Drink something calming and relaxing. We don't want to feed the anxiety. We want to burn off the anxiety. Right? Watching a horror film before something else that you're scared of probably is not the best of techniques.
All right.
Unless you're procrastinating about watching a horror film.
Oh, so this is like endless. This is like Inception. I have no idea which reality I'm being kicked back into now.
That's why we started off with why do you procrastinate? Because you know, something might work for you and it might not work for someone else. It depends on why you do it. You need to know why you procrastinate. If you're a procrastinator, it can be forever. Procrastination will not go away on its own.
All right, so we went through the basic types of procrastination, gave you the job of filling out your list, the homework of filling out your list, and then you can try each of these solutions, right, to see which ones best work for you.
You should try out each one. Give yourself one day and try out each one, and then see how well they work for you. Now, I would also love, because I do a lot of work on this, and plus I'm a procrastinator myself, and so I would love to know what techniques that you do that help you not procrastinate, because I will try them, and if they're really great techniques, I'd also help others that are procrastinating and others of my clients that procrastinate and aren't doing what they have to get done. So I would love to hear.
All right, so if people want to tell us, if you are kind and generous enough to share them with us, no pressure.
Yes, you don't have to.
You can leave a comment on this video in the blog post, or they can reach you where, Georgia?
You can reach me at iMore.com, and you can also see me on Twitter at Georgia_Dow.
Awesome. You can find me, I don't want to tell people. Okay, fine. You can reach me at Rene Ritchie on the social things, or any of the Mobile Nation sites. But please, if you are willing to share, it is beneficial to everybody. It's even beneficial sometimes to us to kind of see it, in front of us.
It really is. It's really beneficial.
Just pick a username that no one would realize, like Georgia or something.
Well, procrastination is something. Hi, this is Georgia Dow talking about this. Procrastination is something that, like, over half the population do, and everyone will do at some point because of some reason. It just stops people from living. You don't do what you really want to do and why. And so it would be wonderful if you wish to share, and we do appreciate it. And the techniques that you use to get rid of it, I need them.
All right, so I've heard the statistic, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard that 50% of people procrastinate, and 50% of people have avoided procrastination.
Cute.
All right, thank you very much, Georgia. I really appreciate it. That was awesome.
Thank you, Rene.
All right, guys, have a good night, and we will see you next time.